One, it's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. Welcome to my takeout. You go up to the steamed things with the food on them, and you just point. Hopefully, there's a sneeze plate there, and you point, and you tell the server that that's what you want, or you serve yourself. Depends on the kind of place, the kind of joint you are. But this is Emil Amok's takeout. Point, joint, Pick your food, take it out, eat it home. It's an Asian thing. It's the way to serve up a meal. The best way to serve up a meal. When you're far away and I'm in my COVID closet. Hey, like I said, welcome to the takeout. My takes on all things considerable. It's Emil Amok's takeout. Because you can't like copyright the word takeout. Can you? Emil Amok's takeout, my takes on all things considerable. We talk about the news. We talk about the news from an Asian American perspective, a Filipino Asian American perspective. That's why we subtitle this WDAAAT. What does an Asian American think? Because you want to know. You want to know, what does an Asian American? Guys, there's Asian Americans up there in Greenland. Well, they're not Asian Americans. They're Asians. Oh, excuse me. They're natives, native peoples. The Inuits are up there. You can see the Asianness, though. You see, and they said, we want America out. We don't want America. So we'll talk about Greenland. Vance is up there with his South Asian wife, trying to look like the big shot, trying to look like he used a couple of curse words because he's with the military. I mean, they were going to make it a cultural exchange, but no one wanted them. So they're just going up to the military and talking about taking over Greenland. And I'll talk to our guest in a second. But what he said was surprising because he said, I'm concerned about the sovereignty of Greenland. And I don't want to see them get endangered by the communists. He mentioned the Russians and the Chinese. This is a guy who doesn't even give a rat's, for Ukraine. And here he's, Greenland. We want to protect you. We care about your sovereignty. Just another, point of hypocrisy, just like all of SignalGate is. And every time the administration likes to use national security as an excuse for everything they do that is good or bad, mostly bad, national security. Oh, yeah. And then on SignalGate, nothing there. There's no national security concern with SignalGate. Are you kidding me? There's no national security concern there. Anyway, let's bring up our guest, Daniel Phil Gonzalez, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University, friend of the show, all around good guy, knowledgeable of the law, knowledgeable of history, Asian American history, because I'm sure, Dan, welcome to the show. I'm sure you have a perspective on certainly SignalGate, but certainly Greenland, right? Oh, I don't hear you, Dan. Dan, I don't hear you.
I really don't know much about geography.
Yeah. I heard that. That's a Sam Cooke song.
Yeah, that's right. And then it was later done by a British group.
Herman.
Anyway,
but you can't. You can't mention
it's really ridiculous.
Say, there's Herman.
Well, he's a businessman. Okay, businessman Trump suddenly gets wise to the fact that Greenland is very rich in certain minerals. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And so he wants to take advantage of that. Some of them may be rare earth minerals, and of course, that would make us. We don't want to be dependent. We don't want to have a client relationship with Greenland. We want to be the boss.
Yeah,
and so he sees at least the threat of taking them. It's going to be very interesting. If he does anything that looks threatening, I think the NATO countries would probably eject the United States because from NATO, and that
Yeah,
would
well,
make it possible for them to come to the defense of Denmark, and the NATO countries to come to the defense of Greenland.
yeah. Well, look, I think also that Trump is doing this because he wants to break up NATO. He
Yeah,
doesn't. He's not.
he,
He's not
yeah.
fearful of NATO, but he wants to break up NATO so that Russia can go in on Ukraine and do anything they want.
Well, but um, I think he understands that Putin's grand scheme, right, is goes well beyond Ukraine.
Oh yeah, it includes the
Yeah.
Arctic, which is why the
Yeah.
Greenland's important. But
Yep.
but this is part of the. There's only going to be the superpowers and no one else, right? And this is why it's all, why
Yeah, but okay, I
Trump is
think you're right. I agree with that.
yeah,
I agree with that analysis. It's a super proud, and of course, Mister megalomaniac
yeah,
in orange
yeah,
thinks that he's the superpower. He
yeah,
thinks he's the superpower, and he really doesn't understand what he's done in terms of the damage economically, political, cultural, global concept, right, of the United States. He has caused terrible damage already,
yeah,
because we look weak. We look
yeah,
really weak. Like even the people look weak at this point, and the only hope we have of turning against this general direction
mhm.
that his administration has taken is now. We always say that, right? We like to say it's a democratic society and the power is.
Oh, Dan, you cut off again. You cut off at a key
Years
moment.
in recent
All right.
years. Yes.
We missed a little bit of your the
Okay. Now,
last sentence
will
was
the people are the people are actually seeming to stand up, and I hope it continues. I hope it spreads. I hope people take nonpartisan positions and just look plainly and simply at the real issues. Of course, the economy in terms of the ground level economy, the affordability of commodities, right, and
yeah,
all that is a major issue. But look at what's taken hold is a criticism of their management of national security.
right,
Okay, and it's people have really caught on, and I think part of the reason is a lot of the people who are paying attention and feeling injured at this point are veterans.
right,
Okay, and they have had the experience of really committing themselves, their lives, their limb, to American society as members of our military. And however critical people on the left might be of military solutions, engagement in war rather than and threats of war or threats of military action rather than diplomacy, right? And the left is famous for that, being peaceniks essentially, right?
yeah,
From the time of the Second World War forward, that's where we're at. And the reality is, who are you going to call? This society needs an adept and intelligent military, and we have actually developed that ever since, particularly since Vietnam War. We learned a lot of lessons, very valuable lessons, both political and military, from the Vietnam War experience. Well, actually, Vietnam conflict was,
yeah, yeah. Well, it's not just that war as a this militaristic machine. It's also in peacetime. You know, the military helps domestically in peace. I mean, there are other aspects, but I think when history looks back at 2025, historians will see Trump managed to alienate the veterans, as you said.
hmm
He alienated the older citizens of America who rely on Social Security.
hmm
They he alienated the students who are immigrants. And let's go back to national security because
well, he's actually alienating all students now because they're cutting back on research money.
oh right and cutting back on he's alienated everyone because he needs to get money from the cuts that he's making to pay off his billionaires, because after you have your superpower tier, Russia and the U.S., maybe China if they let them, then you'll have the oligarch tier, and so you got to keep the oligarchs happy, and everyone else, forget it. They don't need us, and this is the problem. You cut back what they call big government because it's a waste. Well, you need big government to serve the large amount of people who are part of our nation, which makes everything go. And if you get rid of the things that make it easy to communicate with everyone, all the people, and by making these cuts because they're not necessary, you say, I think people are going to start feeling it, right? At the security offices, you wait in line. Everything about government's going to be the DMV. That's what they're going to think.
Well,
turn the government into the DMV, and no
yeah,
one will.
I don't know. I don't know if all the other states had the same kind of problem that California did, but yeah, I think
most
that's
do.
an excellent. You've been around to those states more than I have, and maybe
Yeah.
you've had interaction with their DMVs, but it makes sense, okay? Because
Yeah.
it's a tax base, and some of the money is specifically associated with owning cars and using cars and operating cars, on the freeways, and that money goes directly to DMV. It's specifically allocated, right?
Yeah,
So
but
California, yes, it was really bad when Proposition 13 hit, and the immediate effect was cutting back on all kinds of state services.
yeah,
And the worst example was DMV.
it's
So
still bad.
yeah, but I
It's
don't
still
know that you realize how even you're creeping up on age here
Well,
because
yeah. Look,
that problem existed in the early 80s, right?
oh yeah, all right. Oh well, I'm
20
just
years
pointing.
ago, man.
I'm just pointing out that most people didn't have a problem with where government was like a year ago before Trump, started taking the chainsaw to everything. But now he's alienated not just everyone who got used to government. I mean, it's not perfect, but government was trying to do customer service, and now customer service is all AI and phone trees, and forget about it. But also, look what Trump is doing. He's alienated. We said the students. He's alienated everyone, so that I don't know. Maybe we'll see people who were the the uh, the low information voters, the people who don't care, the people,
Uninvolved,
yeah,
unengaged.
yeah, the people who just live their lives. Maybe we'll see them now say, "Oh, I don't think it's wise to vote for Trump because look at what he's done." Oh, here's the most underreported story today that you'll probably hear, and it's that Trump has moved to end the collective bargaining agreement among government workers.
Yeah,
I heard that as a headline,
yeah.
and you're never going to hear it as a repeating headline too often today because there's other news like the Greenland thing. And this is all part of Trump's strategy, just sort of like, just give people too much stuff to think about, and they're going to like drop half of it. But
It's Navarro's flooding the zone.
yeah,
Peter
but
Navarro's strategy.
I think this is really a key thing. If they vote or if they try to end the collective bargaining agreement among government workers, well, number one, the government workers are all upset because there's like tens of thousands of them getting cut off. HHS, the latest. There's going to be more, throughout. And the end of collective bargaining. How about this? Are unions going to be upset that they crossed over and voted for Trump? I mean, this is
Yeah, they were. Well, UAW is still saying that the tariffs are okay. That's
well,
going to be helpful for American auto workers, and I don't see that logic whatsoever. I really
well.
don't.
If they make more money at the work site, because they'll
Yeah,
have jobs,
but
they're
their
gonna pay it out.
sales of American cars are not going to go up. I'm going to tell you
Yeah.
that right now. They're not going to go up.
Except for one,
Tesla.
Tesla might, because there's no tariffs, right?
There's
Oh,
going to be there's going to be a whole lot of used Teslas for sale
yeah, right.
because people don't want to get their car fried in front of their house.
Right.
People don't want to risk the chance of being ambushed in some way or another while they're trying to charge up their machines
The
on the highway.
terrorists. Hey, speaking of which, the terrorist who was identified in Las Vegas,
Yeah,
an Asian American guy.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
as much as you can say Asian Americans are quiet and docile, well, there are a handful who are out there who
Well,
experience.
yeah, I got a lot of stories for that.
Yeah,
Asian Americans and especially immigrant Asian Americans stay quiet the longest, and they have a very conservative mentality. They don't want to attract attention to themselves. They want to try to understand the society. They want, it's kind of an assimilationist mentality, and it's not. It's a healthy mentality, right? It's a
yeah,
defensive mentality, but it's a healthy mentality. However, if they feel set upon, and if the severity, right, of the felt suppression,
mhm,
okay, becomes too real, they go pretty ballistic very fast, and then everybody's taken by surprise. Wow,
yeah.
where did that come from, right? And
Well,
you know,
yeah. I wasn't surprised, but you just don't see very many Asian Americans out there. Although in the last couple days, you saw Asian Americans who were picked on because of their pro-Palestinian views at protests, like the Korean American girl who ICE tried to deport her, and fortunately,
right,
she was able. She, the Columbia student, she was able uh, to get a court to stop ICE from harassing her, and now she's in hiding. And I hope she comes away and is able to say, because she's legal. She's a legal immigrant. You got this. Uh, so many stories coming out about students, but the broader picture, they're going after immigrants. They're going after legal immigrants, and there's a Filipino American who had a green card for 50 years, and they stopped her on her way back from a visit to Manila. It's almost like Wong Kim Ark. You
yeah,
go away,
yeah,
you come back, they get
right,
you,
right.
and you got to wonder: is is anyone safe under a Trump administration that will pull out any rule, not just the Alien Enemies Act, but any rule that says, "Oh, I can deport you, I can get you out of here without due process," and even if you're a legal green card holder, they might have enough to get you out. And this is
You referenced the Wong Kim Ark case, and the reason that he was subjected to rejection and not readmitted, right, to the United States is because he took a break, went back to Asia, and then was returning. Well, a law had been passed in 1888,
yeah,
okay, and he was subjected to that law, and that law said if any Chinese, even though legally present in the United States, ever leave the United States, okay, they could not re-enter. That
oh,
that
so
was that
yeah,
was I'm just making the point that they passed that in the past. Now, a lot of people, especially immigrants, are going to say, "Well, that was 1888," you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
and they're not going to do that kind of thing now. They have already done stuff
yeah.
repeatedly that what they don't understand. I guess I don't. They
But
don't understand things like in practical terms, the resegregating of American society. That's
yeah,
been going on for the last 40 years, right? The
right. And
resegregation of American society. But they don't pay attention to that because nobody talks about it.
Well, but also look, if they say, "Oh, that law happened in 1888," it wouldn't have, can't affect me now.
Right.
Well, the law that gives you birthright citizenship,
That's right. They're
right?
attacking
The
that.
14th Amendment is from
They're attacking,
1898.
yep. Yep.
So, if
Citizenship
they could,
laws. 14th Amendment's plain. It is
yeah,
very plain, right?
yeah,
So I want to hear the originalist argument that
yeah,
says that we get to redefine, right, what kind of permanent residency you have, or whether or not you can earn that. And we've been through this before. What I've
yeah.
said with
Well,
is that the court will probably come down with some kind of compromise and say that if both parents are legal, then birthright citizenship, at the time of birth, then birthright citizenship holds. They might do something like that, that whittle away at it a little bit.
yeah, but the point is that every time someone brings up a challenge, it is it gives someone the ability to write or rewrite the rule in a different way or a new rule
Absolutely.
to reverse the rule. So if
Absolutely.
people are feeling comfortable that, oh, we got the rule to protect us, oh, wait, all you need is a challenge from someone like Trump and his forces, and boom, you know, oh, the rule's gone. I mean, just like abortion rights, right?
Well,
Abortion rights.
how about the recent hypocrisy that they've been practicing around the criticism of Boasberg, among other judges, right? For
Yeah,
being for why does a district judge have the ability to stop the orders of the president of the United States?
right.
Well,
Yeah,
they had district judges in Texas that were stopping the orders, and in Florida that were stopping the orders, just for an example, right? Of
yeah,
all three previous presidents. All
yeah,
three previous, maybe four. I think we can go all the way back to Clinton. There was
yeah,
always a district judge somewhere, right, that was contradicting the power of the executive office.
yeah,
And now it happens to them, right? And they
yeah,
say they were cheering the Texas judges on.
yeah,
Just 4 years ago, 5 years ago, six during the Biden administration, they were cheering those Texas judges on.
yeah.
District court.
Yeah. Well, see, here's the thing about the law, and about how it's publicly played out so that people understand it, so they misunderstand it. Because look at the role of the attorney general. The attorney general shouldn't be a mouthpiece or a cheerleader for the administration. The attorney general in previous administrations, going back to Clinton, have always been like, oh, here's the rule of law, right? This is what the rule is. We're going to find out. We're going to investigate. And you look back, and you go back to Clinton, Janet Reno, the Whitewater case, right? I
If
mean,
you go if you look at prosecution by government, right, power, prosecution, you go all the way down to the city and county level. What do you have? You have district attorneys, right?
yeah,
And then who are they? The mayor's lawyer? Are they the mayor's lawyer? They're essentially an independent body, okay?
yeah,
And then you move up to the state level. The attorney generals, what are they? They're independent bodies. Do they often execute investigations into members of the executive branch, right? The governor's branch? Yeah, they
yeah,
do.
yeah,
Okay, especially if there's suspicion of corruption or anything like that. Frequently, it's about conflict of interest issues, right? Somebody's
yeah,
got an investment or that contradicts, right, their position in the executive branch somewhere. One of the appointees. Those are fairly frequent cases. Okay, so when you take that up and then you move it all the way up to the federal level and you look at the attorney general, right? That's supposed to be an independent body.
yeah,
Okay, so here's the problem: the Constitution does not say that the president can't do that. The Constitution does not say that the attorney general is an independent person, right? And the office, right? And their job is to even challenge, right, the executive office. Okay, that it doesn't say that, and so it allows for people to simply say, President of the United States, to simply say, in cooperation with the Attorney General, that's my lawyer. Okay, and that's what
yeah,
they've done. And
yeah,
Pam Bondi, who a lot of people were saying was a respected prosecutor, and all that, she is a complete hypocrite. And the biggest indication that this was going to happen was when she refused, right, to recognize that the 2020 election was legitimate, that the
oh yeah,
outcome was legitimate, that Biden won. She absolutely refuses to say that.
yeah. Well, that was her qualification to be attorney general under Trump, right? As long
Sure.
as,
Yeah, but people didn't think that she was going to be this bad.
yeah.
How
Well,
could you possibly believe that? It's
well,
completely illogical. It's
she,
absolutely illogical.
Geez, this bad. And now you see the conservatives, you see MAGA, Trump going after the law in the same way that they were saying that the Democrats never went after Trump with that kind of zeal. But now, in
No,
reverse,
they never did. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you see the Republicans coming after even the attorneys. I mean, last week or the last time
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
talked about
Yep.
Paul Weiss, the law firm
Yep.
Paul Weiss, and we have friends who are lawyers, big law, the big white shoe firms, every white shoe firm that went against Trump is now going under this extreme scrutiny and being forced to bend the knee. Paul Weiss said they'd give $40 million in pro bono work, legal
Right.
work, right? And the important thing about pro law, these big law firms, is that that's like, you're hiring all the top guns. You're hiring all the best legal artillery to fight, for your point, leaving everyone else, left with a couple of AR-15s at best. I mean, the thing is, Trump is lawyering up, and that's not a good thing. And he's forcing these big firms like Wilmer Hale and Paul Weiss to bend the knee, kiss the ring, and say, "Oh yeah, Donald Trump, he's great. Yeah, yeah." And
Well, it's also important to recognize that these are not just political issues, right? These are actually economic issues.
oh
Okay,
yeah, yeah,
and he is breaking the law by taking away basic one of the basic premises, right, of the American legal system support for capitalism, for free enterprise, is the right to contract. Okay, that
yeah,
that is in the Constitution.
yeah,
Okay, and so interference with the right to contract is itself a suable, right,
yeah.
offense, a
And yet,
suable violation.
that's what the law firms that are being pressed. That's what they can come back with.
Yes.
But they've all, and this is the big word. Uh, you mentioned capitalism, and here's the other big word: capitulation. That's the word. It's not. We're not anti-cancer. We're not
So
anti.
many, so many syllables.
Yeah,
Yeah,
capitulation.
yeah.
Oh, it's like you decapitate.
Oh
You,
yeah,
you
oh
give
yeah,
up. So I mean, so everyone's given up to Trump. That's it. The
yeah,
capitulation to Trump.
yeah.
And I first heard
Well,
capitulation
there's one guy that's not going to give up.
is
God, I'm forgetting his name. I had his name early. Oh, Mark Elias.
Mark Elias.
He
Yeah.
was named. He was
Oh yeah.
specifically named as an individual, as well as the Elias Group, his
Well,
firm.
Norm Eisen too. Norm
Oh
Eisen
yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah. Norm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
I mean,
Yeah,
they're the lawyers, and these are the guys that you'll see every now and then pop up on the news shows. But you got to hand it to them because they're fighting in the realm where this thing ultimately goes. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons why you became a lawyer, and it's one of the reasons why he said, I think I'll stop at journalism." Because the journalists we stop at the court of public opinion, and we
yeah.
say we'll fling it around here, and we'll let the lawyers fight the next step to the Supreme Court, and after that, that's where it ends, and
Well,
that's where you got to
I
hope.
yeah, there were quite a few of my classmates who did not want to practice law. They were there for actually for journalism, for legal journalism.
Yeah.
They wanted to be court reporters on the one hand, and on the other hand, they wanted to be the people who did the reductions of case law, right, to go into the law books.
Right,
And
right.
so I had several classmates that had that in mind when they enrolled in law school, and
Yeah,
they're doing quite well actually.
yeah. I
Uh,
mean, you could because people need to understand what the hell the lawyers are saying. That's what you learn
yeah,
about.
and what you learn what you learn is that once again, one side of the political spectrum, right, has effectively used marketing techniques, right, that involve adopting the language of the opposition, right,
Oh
to
yeah,
make to decorate their own really very corrupt intentions. So, for example, the attack on affirmative action
right.
during the 90s in
Mm,
California was called the California Civil Rights Initiative, right? They called it and made it sound like we're for equality and all the rest. We just aren't for what affirmative action.
yeah,
And I said, what it's going to come down to is how are white women going to vote, particularly white women in the professional sector,
yeah.
because the people that benefited most throughout the society, not just in California, but throughout the whole country, from affirmative action policy and practice were white women, particularly college educated white women.
And isn't it funny? Because right now, what we're seeing is we're seeing people who voted against their best interest to vote for Trump now seeing what Trump is really all about. And these are federal workers,
Yep.
they're union people,
Yep.
they're women, they're people of color,
Yeah.
people of color, who, if Donald Trump or if Joe Biden, or in this case, Kamala Harris, if she had held the male white voter to the degree that Biden was able to hold him, she'd win. If she was able to hold just the blacks and Hispanics who went over to Trump,
African American men and Latino men, yeah,
Harris would have won. We wouldn't be having this conversation if she were got women to boot to vote for her overwhelmingly. She would have, and the only explanation is that a lot of those people who went with Trump thought, oh, Trump's harmless. He's our president. He's not going to do anything else. I don't really care about any of the issues. What's he going to do for the economy? They don't. It's the low information voter, and now we're seeing some of them wake up and say, "Oh my God, I've been asleep. I wasn't paying attention."
I call it voting under the influence. VUI, man.
I mean, really, it's sad because there are a number of people, black people, brown people, saying, "Well, what? I mean, they weren't going to deport us. We were legal, or here they are."
Well, you heard Latino everyday people, being interviewed on local channels as well as national channels, national TV, and they're saying they're not after us; they're after the bad people. They're after. Yeah, well, then why are they not telling us who is being held in that El Salvador prison?
Salvador, or how about the people who are in Panama who are stuck, who are like cutting, they're in mid
contract. El Salvador is now contract Guantanamo, right? They're just another contract. Okay.
Yeah.
And it why did they make that decision? Because it's cheaper to have a contract with El Salvador than it was to maintain Guantanamo and send people there, because that cost way more.
It's all
just
dollars.
That one trip with less than 100 people, right?
Yeah.
Costs them more, right?
Millions.
In one exercise than a whole year guaranteed, right? In El Salvador.
See, it's all dollars. You could say, well, that's
well, if
business.
That was the case, then why are we still supporting Trump's tax cuts for the billionaires?
That's the thing. I mean,
the increase in the national debt, just attributed only to Trump tax cuts during his first term, was at least $4.5 trillion. Okay, that's the minimal expression.
Yeah,
and so then you got to look at what's the effect of all of these cuts, however drastic they are. How much money is actually being saved by the cuts that have already been taken? And take it further. Try to imagine that all of the cuts that are suggested in Project 2025 get done.
Yeah.
Is it gonna even come close to $4.5 trillion?
No, but you know what? The pain that most Americans will feel is going to be real. The pain is going to be real.
Oh yeah,
they're going to feel the pain, and we're not going to be able to.
The people need to feel the pain. Yeah. They need to feel the pain, but it's besides feeling the pain and being completely reactionary, they have to understand how it got here so that they can act more intelligently in the future, right? And that's what I fear. That's what I fear they will not do, because they didn't do that when Nixon was forced out of office. Okay? Yeah. He was forced out of office, and the Democrats made the deal, right? Nobody's going to go for prosecution if he gets out. Okay, and to make sure that didn't happen, he got a pardon. The first time that a pardon was exercised in that fashion. And my classmates, and first year classmates, man, they were saying there is no precedent for the exercise of pardon power in this manner. And I said, do you understand the concept precedent? Something has to happen first. This is it, right? And that was in my first 2 weeks, my first year in law school. And I'm going to tell you right now, that made an impression on the rest of my classmates, because
Yeah,
I was
well,
standing there all by myself saying that.
yeah. Well, we didn't learn from Watergate. I mean, I'm great.
Yeah,
I'm glad that the linguistic term, I guess it's or etymological phrase, to add current scandal to the appendage gate
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah,
is,
yeah.
is in
That's
practice,
true.
because every time you see signal gate
Yeah,
or you see some scandal in gate, it makes people realize, oh, this
it
goes
goes all the
back
way
to
back to Nixon.
Watergate,
Yeah.
and then you can compare and say, is this as bad as Nixon? Is this as bad
Oh
as
no.
Watergate?
Well, what do
And
you think? Let's answer that question. What do you think?
well,
Is it as bad as Nixon?
I think SignalGate. I think SignalGate is. Although some people can argue and say, "Oh, wait a minute, Nixon was trying to rig an election. He was trying to steal secrets from the Democrats. It was a burglary. It was a real crime." And I say, "Well, wait a minute. What were these guys on Signal talking about a war? What were they doing?
That's
They
right.
weren't. The illegality is in that they were talking about something in an unsecure, platform on an unsecure platform that could have endangered American lives, that could have endangered the mission, and that is a breach of national security. And when you have like if it was just me or some guys from HHS or some guys from some non-related to national security, then you can say, oh, maybe you can forgive them. But you're talking about the top people in the national security, the Secretary of State, the Director of National Intelligence, the Secretary of
CIA,
Defense, the
CIA director.
CIA. You're
Yeah.
talking about all these top guys, and they're acting like amateurs. They're acting recklessly.
No, no, it's worse than that. It's approaching cover up, and so
Right.
the way that, yeah,
That's what we
that's
learned
the
from
way the
Watergate.
comparison gets made, right?
Yeah.
Because what we learned from Nixon was that the cover up was actually worse than the crime.
Right.
Okay,
You're right. Right.
and
I was
so
going to get to that, but because it
that's all
is.
right. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. We're here to just help each other out and move forward.
You're right. You're right. The cover up. It's always the cover up, and when did they first say that? They first said that with Watergate.
Right, and
Of-
and
of-
then did you see the behavior of those people that were impaneled for the two previously
oh yeah.
scheduled hearings
Oh yeah.
in front of the Senate and in front of the House?
I wrote about this on my Inquirer.net columns of this week, and there was just so much. The coincidence is ironic, but it's good that the Senate and the House Intelligence Committees had set this up for the state of the world threats, right? But the state of the world threats are sitting right there, in Washington as the leaders of national security. And boy, I was really disappointed in Tulsi Gabbard because number one, she's an AANHPI, and she showed how truly unqualified she is, and how unseasoned and how inexperienced. Where she refused to even admit at first that she was on the group chat, and then everyone said, "We know you're on the group chat. We see."
Yep. Well,
And then
okay. The reason I raised the word cover up is really
yeah,
simple. Both she and Ratcliffe
mm.
lied.
Oh yeah, Ratcliffe said,
Under oath, they lied. They
"Yeah,
said, "I don't recall," and they repeated that several times. "I don't recall." Now, why do they get away with it? Because we can't prove that they do recall. We can't prove it unless they make the mistake live and in person and say something that's inconsistent with the failure of recollection right there at the same time. Because they could walk away from that hearing and then say outside, "I remember now." And they would not be subject to any kind of punishment, right? Even
well,
though they know
later."
damn well.
Yeah, later on, Tulsi Gabbard sort of loosened up a bit and said, "Well, there were some, details, but they weren't like classified." Was it
But
classified,
that's
unclassified?
see, that is an admission that the discussion did occur.
Yeah,
Okay, and then the question is not whether or not those things happened, or that those subjects were not covered. The question is, how do we classify them? And that's the other defense, right? That
yeah,
was not classified. And then now the media is asking the right question. Well, did you ever declassify them, or what is the status now? Where
yeah,
do we go to determine whether or not these are classified? And what you're getting at this point is not only the high level officers, right? Everybody except the Pentagon, right? The Pentagon is under their control, right?
yeah,
Under Trump's control. So everybody that's ex-Pentagon, right?
yeah,
And former chiefs of staff, right?
yeah,
Admirals, right?
yeah.
All the way down to pilots. Now
Right,
you're getting retired pilots, right? Who are
right.
saying, and not so recently retired, right? People who have flown these missions and
Yeah,
who are saying, if any one of us did this, we would not, we would be court-martialed, and
yeah,
then once court-martialed, we would be open to prosecution as civilians as well, right?
yeah, yeah.
And we'd be headed for prison, and and so that's what the public needs to hear. That's
Yeah,
what they
well,
need to hear.
you
People
know
on
that.
the ground.
Yeah, and well, how about this? If there were people of color involved, they'd be fried too,
No, they'd be fried fat quicker. Quicker.
because I see this whole thing as the defense of white incompetence. Because
Woohoo!
you have people here who were unqualified and put in their roles because of one thing, not a matter of how good they are in anything, but their loyalty to Trump. So it's not a matter of are you good in, in managing a large organization or keeping secrets or anything like that. It was just, are you loyal to Trump? And so yes, and so these unqualified people are learning on the job,
Yeah.
and they are screwing up big time. And they all mostly happen to be white, male, and especially in case of Hegseth, it's a matter of white male incompetence. Kash Patel, the director of FBI, he was actually kind of, hey, and whenever he's asked a question, I didn't hear, I just heard about this, I didn't know about this,
Well,
that
he
was his.
actually said in one instance,
Yeah,
not about Signal, not
yeah,
about this issue, but there was one instance where he said, "Well, I think there is a likelihood that there should be an investigation in this regard," and it was
yeah,
something having to do with Doge.
yeah,
But Musk, he's going to be on the short fuse too. I mean, he's really lucky that this Signal event has drawn attention away from him.
yeah, oh
I'm
yeah,
I'm really unhappy that the attention has been drawn away from him. I'm also unhappy that the general public thinks that getting rid of Musk is gonna work. It's gonna that it's gonna at least stop the kind of action that's being taken that is destroying important government and private institutions that they depend on, that the public is largely dependent on, right?
yeah,
So when you cut CDC, and then you also cut universities who do research in conjunction with CDC, right? And health and HHS, what are you
yeah,
going to get? What are we going to get? They are urging on the next pandemic.
yeah. Well, the thing is that there's wastefulness and there's fraud. You can cut that, but
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
we're
and well,
we're,
you
we're
could cut
cutting.
that, but could cut a lot of the fraud by cutting the president of the United States. That would be a
Oh
good
yeah,
move.
well that you could,
Let me
fish.
remind you, the word, his convictions were 34 counts of fraud, FRAUD. Okay.
Right. And we all know that the fish stinks from the head, so cut the head off. But
Yeah.
no, here's the thing about we built up this government over the last 100 years. Trump wants to bring us back 100 years ago when we didn't have this, and we were a smaller nation. You need this size government to deal with the 300 million people that we have in the United States, so that we can function. It's not a matter of inefficiency, but when you look at inefficiency as a matter of what's profitable, what can we get away with, and
Yeah.
and all you care about is the bottom line, then you make these stupid cuts. You make cuts that hurt.
I don't think. Okay, I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think they're
Uh,
stupid. I think he's trying to make government completely inefficient. He's trying
Oh
to
yeah,
make all institutions dysfunctional, and as a result, turn it around and say, "See, this is why we need major reform, and we need to rethink all of these structures. We need to eliminate as many of these myriad of institutions as possible, and think much more simply and bring it down, to essentially a kingdom."
yeah, right,
Re-
right. We
Reduce
we
the
should
society down to an imperial society, led
just
by
run
his
this.
orangeness.
Yeah, we just run it like Trump, Trump
Like Trump,
International, Trump
like a Trump
University.
business, which
Like
all
yeah,
failed, all failed until he became president of the United States the first time, right?
yeah. Right, right. Because I mean, we could stay in your hotel and you could make money, and then we could go in and say hi to you. And I
Oh, but
mean,
he
here's
didn't. Didn't he say that he was, he was
the
divesting himself?
yeah.
Didn't he say that he was doing it?
He's there
Yeah,
was no buffer between him and the boys, between Don Jr. and Eric and
yeah,
everyone.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was all him. It was all him. And this is the thing. This is the grift that just makes you kind of say, I can't stand that. But
You
the
know,
American people fell for it.
that's if any other person, any other president had done what he did, just in terms of failing to divest and then having this open relationship, with other dignitaries from other countries, putting money in his friggin' pocket, right?
Yeah.
He would be impeached. He would have
Yeah.
easily been impeached just on that alone. Okay,
Yeah.
and yet we have a myriad of accusations against him, all of which have factual foundation,
Yeah.
right? And they voted for him, and
This,
America deserves what they get.
yeah.
America deserves what they get. Okay, that's the way I
This
feel.
this is this makes you yearn for the rule of law, because uh
No,
because
in real terms,
in real
rather than just being a concept,
yeah.
like democracy being only a concept at this point.
Yeah. Well, Trump doesn't get rule of law in real time, because he fights everything. He doesn't want to give up. That he'll go all the way up to the top, and then even then, he begrudgingly accepts the rule of the Supreme Court.
Yeah, yeah, and that's our risk. We're
Yeah.
we're at risk right there, and when they gave him that nearly general immunity.
Yeah.
Uh, well, I thought, if all of their other decisions follow in that direction and with that pattern, we're in real trouble. We're in real trouble. I
Because he
I
can overrule this. Oh, well, he won't be brought up before the Supreme Court.
I don't think they're gonna. If they follow that same pattern, the likelihood is that they will find no reason to review whatever the challenges are against them.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and they can always say it's either moot or it's within the parameters of his immunity.
Yeah.
Okay, they could do that. They've already set the foundation for it.
Yeah. And then look, and then if they go against him, uh, well, and then we'll see how much he believes in democracy.
Well, let's see how far they believe that they're impervious to attacks by his most zealous warriors.
Yeah.
And I'm
Well,
talking about the physical threats,
yeah.
to them and their families.
It's
The,
still there to
well,
judges.
the judges that are taking the positions they're taking are really exercising a great deal of courage,
Yeah.
uh, because they're very vulnerable. They do not have the level of protection that the people who are coming up with these fake charges, and the protection that the fraudulent president has.
Yeah.
Uh, Everybody else is at risk, and it's really saddening to me. The other thing is, people see. I have to keep repeating that I hope that the American public understands that the reason all of these things have come to pass, especially the obviousness of billionaire influence, right, on the politics of this country, not just the politics of domestic politics, but also international politics and international trade, how adversely that affects us all. That they need to understand that we've got to get money out of elections. We have to pass twice in our lifetimes. Uh, the until I guess it was Feingold passed away first, right, and then Kennedy. But there was a Kennedy McCain attempt
Yeah. Yeah.
at campaign finance, and there was a Feingold,
Russ Michael.
yeah,
Russ.
attempt
Yeah.
at campaign finance from the Senate, and it never got to a vote. It never got to a vote on the Senate floor. It never got to a vote, obviously, to the House.
Yeah. And if you get the money out, see the big fear, no one wants to do anything. They don't want to talk about it in public. Republicans, they can be good people, but they're not good enough because they won't say something in public that they'll say in private. And they won't say it in public because they don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want to be primary. They don't want to,
Well, they don't want to have to worry about where their kids are on a given day.
yeah. Well, that's
It doesn't. It's not as though I believe that there's going to be organized patrols of fascist vigilantes, right? That are going to go after these judges and their families and all that stuff. All it takes is a couple of renegades. I mean, just like the guy, the Asian American dude. I think he was a Wong. That set fire to the Teslas and shot up the showroom. All it takes is somebody who's willing to do the violence. Just one person. The so-called lone wolf. But the greater threat is an organized vigilante group. That's the greater threat because if they're smart enough, they can get away with a whole lot of stuff without getting caught.
Well, Donald Trump has pretty much enlisted them all by giving them all pardons, and he's identified them. They're all out.
What's the first guy? What the horn, the Viking horns, and all the rest of that stuff? Did you hear the first thing he said when he got out? He said, "I'm going out. I'm going to buy a couple of guns."
Oh yeah, I thought he didn't say I'm going to buy some Teslas. It wasn't a cool thing. It wasn't a January 6th car. The Tesla, the Cybertruck, wasn't a January 6th car.
Well, it's kind of asking people who want electric vehicles to be go to hell and have everybody still run on oil, right, on petroleum products. It's like, and they can. I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think they're going to buy the damn Teslas, right?
And while we're on this topipic, the tariffs are real, and it's going to be more real next week.
Yeah, it's going to be real. Yeah, next week. That's what I was going to say. It's the second and the third. There are two consecutive of tariffs, and then even then it won't be real, right? Because we're going to have to wait for the reaction from the people who are most directly affected by the tariffs. I'm talking about the countries, not just not the population. It gets real when the populations of those countries engaged in these tariff battles, right? When they get hurt, and that's going to take about another month. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm thinking
about another month. And in the meantime, we'll see whether or not our Social Security checks still come. Okay?
Yeah, I know. And I'm thinking that in a couple months, I'm going to Canada. I'm curious if I'm going to be welcome. I'm going to have to.
Oh man, I think it might be worth it to try and establish Canadian citizenship so you can have a passport that's other than an American passport, because I don't think that dark blue thing is going to be real welcome, when we go elsewhere in the world.
How about this? If I go up there and speak peace toward Canada, will they let me back into the U.S.? That's the question.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually true.
Will they let me back in without
even if you can prove that both of your parents were legal when you were born, right? They'll hurt you economically because you're gonna have to go to court to defend against prosecution, by ICE. Right?
I just don't know. I just
Oh
don't know.
no, it's really bad. It's really bad. I got to put my. I'm kind of scared to put that T-shirt on, but I have a T-shirt that says "I only look illegal." You know. You know?
I know. Well, this is the thing about people who uh, are, who think that they. I mean, I thought when I mentioned it when like months ago, oh, they'll come after me. I thought,
Uh-huh.
oh, that's not real. It's getting realer and realer.
Yeah. Oh
If
yeah.
you look like an immigrant, if you look you know, like you don't belong here, that could be a basis for being stopped. Doesn't have to be. Oh, he's not. Oh, he's look how he's dressed. Oh, look how he talks. The
Yeah, this is
suspicion.
going to be really screwy. I've been asking questions. People have been asking me questions. One one friend of mine who's also a veteran, a Vietnam era veteran, and actually was in Vietnam. He just didn't do combat in Vietnam. Um, and he got out. He retired his commission, resigned his commission at the end of the war, so he didn't stay in for the National Guard, right? But anyway, we had a conversation just the other day, and he says, first thing he says, he's got a son that's been very successful in computers, okay, and he's about midway through his career at this point, so he's moving up management style, and he had a couple of years ago bought a Tesla, right? And so the first thing this gentleman said to me was, "Yeah, he sold it. He was able to get out from underneath it, and he didn't have as much of an investment." Then he started complaining about the fact that he had a Tesla, and that he says, "I don't, it's going to be really hard to sell this thing, and we've got so much money that we paid into it. We put in a lot of money into this thing, and all that." And I'm saying, yeah, that 60 or 70 grand, if you got the Model S, right?
Yeah.
With the dual motor, that's a lot of bread. And so I felt for him, and I said, look, you got to look at the big picture, dude. Okay, the thing that you're up against is there's going to be a flood of used Teslas,
Yeah.
available
Well,
out
now,
there.
is the dual motor Tesla? Is that a hybrid?
No, it's got a motor for the front and a motor for the back.
Oh,
It
so the
means
dual.
it has
Yeah.
two separate motors. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why it goes 0 to 60 in two
Yes,
seconds.
exactly. It's like 3.6 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I was in one. I've only been in a Tesla once, and that was when I took a lift, and then they were selling Teslas to Lyft drivers,
Right.
Uber driver. I took a lift, or they were
Yeah, they were
both.
giving him a really big break,
Yeah, and
and plus they were getting the federal tax write off.
oh yeah, but I rode in one. I thought, oh, this is cool, but this was before the downturn of or the reversal of Musk from being, the Democrat. I mean, he was fairly liberal guy, and then he not so liberal, and then Tesla, like in the past, the Tesla was a car for people who were, green and mostly liberal, and this was the future, and now, it's not an F-150. It's not an
Well,
F-1.
see, the Bay Area in Northern California liked it also because it was local.
Oh,
They were being made locally, in a
out of
factory
Fremont.
right across the
Yeah,
bay.
yeah.
Okay, but the thing that you say that he had this image of liberal, it's green and all the rest of that stuff. What I was looking at was the complaints. First of all, he wouldn't allow unionization, right? So he was
Oh,
fighting unionization, just like Starbucks and everybody else was fighting unionization. Okay, but then when there was an investigation as to why people were pushing so hard for unionization, and people looked at the labor circumstances, it looked a lot like Amazon, where the hours being worked and the pressure and all around rest of that stuff was so high that people really were worried about themselves. It was disclosed that Amazon had a high injury rate. Remember that?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And so the issue, the complaints that brought my attention to Musk as a very, let's say, right wing corporate guy, right, were the issues around race, because there were individuals who were not being promoted. White people were being promoted over them. And when they complained, they were finding nooses, right, in their lockers. All
Yeah.
that kind of stuff was going on, and so that that kind of thing people could dismiss, I guess, because there were so few people who came out with those complaints because they know what the result is going to be. It's going to be similar to what happened to Amazon and Starbucks employees. They were fired initially, right?
Yeah. Well, but the thing about Musk, what he's done also, because he needs engineers, and a lot of those
Yeah,
engineers are on H-1B visas,
that's right. They're Asian. They're
and they
Asian and Latino.
right, and a lot of them get exploited. They
Yep,
get used up, and then when it comes to the time, oh, are you going to make them permanent, or are you going to keep them? They send them back.
that's right.
They don't.
That's right. That's been the practice with a lot of the Asians.
They don't keep them, and then they're forced to make a decision to, oh, do I overstay? I like it in
That
America,
well,
or do I just go home? And
according
you know,
to the 2023 stats, the 2024 stats aren't available, or at least weren't available yet when I did this research. But according to the 2023 stats, for the seventh year in a row, overstays outnumber illegal immigrants.
wow, overstays.
Overstays.
They're
I
here
I
already.
keep
They're here
saying
already.
that. I keep telling people that. Okay, they keep looking at the border, right? They keep looking at the southern border. They say, "Look at those borders. We got to stop those borders." And I said, "Dude, you
Yeah,
know, beginning in 1965, right?
yeah,
20,000 people per year could
yeah,
apply for legal permanent residency in the United States as real immigrants. Okay, we're not
yeah,
talking about limited period visas. And then over and above that, almost to the same number, if there were 60,000 people applying for immigration and there were 60,000 who were applying under visas, right? The visa, if those people, if they overstayed, they're going to be just as many of them as there are
yeah.
legal immigrants, right?
Well, and that's why when Trump goes after the legals, the legal residents. Well, the overstays are one thing,
Yeah.
but he goes after the legal residents. He finds some kind of infraction, like this Filipino woman who came back, and she had, she'd done something wrong years ago, decades ago.
Yep.
Now living her life, but for some reason that she's considered a danger, and so and deportable. I mean, this is the kind of thing where, well, we've got to bring this to court, but I don't know if she'll have her day in court. She needs a day in court to argue that fact, but
That's right. Yeah, but
I mean,
they're sending people to Louisiana. I don't know what the hell
yeah,
they've
that's
already
what.
sent what two grad students, at least two grad students down to
Yeah,
Louisiana. The latest one that I saw was from Tufts.
oh, the Turkish one.
He was arrested on the street right in front of her apartment,
Yeah,
and
what is that? That's like secret police thing. Mask. They
no
don't arrest
mask,
her.
no ID. Yeah, yeah. Not only, and why did they need like 6 or 7 people?
Well,
I mean, what is she? She's an expert at kung fu or something. I mean, she was going to resist. What's
but
that all about, man?
this is a scary thing. All you need is one of these to put a chill out there in society. Either it puts a chill out to like be cool, or it lights a fire to say, hey, what the heck's going on here? We got to protect the civil liberties of people who are here legal. She was here legally as a student,
Yeah.
and
See. Once again, I always go all the way back to individualism, and I hate to end on this. I know that you're going to want to wrap soon, but it's always about individualism. People have to feel it themselves in order for them to even consider what it's like for the other. And so when these young people, grad students, they don't like them already. I mean, there's a lot of the general public don't like the fact that you've got foreigners attending the best universities in the United States, okay, and about to realize the most respected degrees, right, in the
yeah.
world
Well,
from
well,
from the most respected institutions, right?
yeah.
And we don't even have a chance at that. So if this person has done something even mildly wrong, yeah, what the hell? Let them take away their visa and revoke revoke their presence in the United States.
And there was Marco Rubio standing up for the law, saying, the Secretary of State saying, yeah, as many as 300 students? Yeah, sure. You come here as our guest. If I came to your place as a guest and started taking it apart,
Criticizing, yeah.
You wouldn't want me there. You'd get me out. I mean, I just think that.
Yeah, he's a real brave guy. The son himself of immigrant parents, right?
Yeah, Marco Rubio is just doing what he can to maintain his gig, and he was in on that SignalGate thing.
Yep,
and he was one of the first to say, yeah, we should make it. We made a mistake, admit it. Say lessons learned, move on. If the Republicans had done that at the beginning,
this wouldn't be the news cycle right now. Yeah, it's going to continue. Yeah, I don't care. I don't care if they were able to get away with this and it's off the news cycle, because if there was an investigation, if there was a way that people could investigate whether or not they had used Signal in the past, okay,
Yeah.
so that this is only one meeting, okay, where they discuss these kinds of things that essentially are about national security, right? And if there was possible that you find other instances, I mean, they seemed all too comfortable in this situation.
Oh yeah, and yeah, they I'm sure they had other meetings and other secret things are going on, but this is why it's important that national security is an issue. It gets brought up in everything. The immigration thing, the students thing, if it's a threat to national security, they will use national security, even Greenland. We need it for national security.
Well, they do have a base up there.
Yeah, they already have a base up there. But the Greenlanders say, hey, if you want more base area, or you want to establish more of a presence here, talk to us. But I think the real reason they want to bust up NATO to help.
Okay, I agree. I agree.
To help Putin, they want to help Putin, and it just adds to the hypocrisy in general of the way the Trump administration is in these first, we're not quite to 100, like 80 something days. It just makes you wonder how fast our country is just circling the drain. It's just
I know it is. It is. The only hope that we have is that there will be a greater degree of nonpartisan agreement.
That's what we need.
Emergency situation that we have. We have to be open to people who are willing to recognize that we have to do something about, for example, right, money in politics. Campaign financing. If you don't deal with that, you're going to continue to have the same problem you have right now. Okay.
You got to shut Musk and the oligarchs out, limit the amount of funds, maybe put a cap, $5. And then we'd see honestly run campaigns, and we wouldn't see the gravy train of campaign finance.
It has already worked in some states, and it has already worked in some cities, right? There's some level of campaign finance regulation, and once again, Seattle and Washington State, right, are ahead of California and San Francisco in the level of restriction that they have on local campaign financing. So that's a good thing. I mean, I was starting to hear really weird stuff. I have to determine whether or not this is factual, okay? But in a conversation that I had with a small group of journalists last year, young journalists, people in their 30s, a couple, one of whom actually took my class when she was a student at SF State, and they said that some local millionaires, local billionaires, were financing people's campaigns for the local Democratic committee, for just the city county committee.
I remember that. I mean, you can't do that.
This is not even an elected office.
Right. It's sort of like a stepping stone. It's a stepping stone.
It is definitely. You get recognition. You build your recognition within the party that way. Yeah. And one person tried to run for a seat there, and was literally smothered out by the amount of money that was being donated to another person's campaign. And this isn't even. I remember in all the way up to the 80s, you
Yeah.
could win a seat on the school board, for
Oh yeah.
example, Board of
Nothing.
Education,
No, for nothing.
for over 50 grand and under 100 grand, right? And
Yeah.
then suddenly seats on the community college district board, on the school board, right? Because that was a stepping stone to the supervisors, right? All of a sudden it started going up 150,000, 200,000, 250,000. And the people who were making the money were the advisors, right? The campaign advisors, the people who ran the
It,
campaigns.
the whole industry, we got to cut the industry and make it more. If we make it more like the high school class president, we'd be better off. I mean, it's gotten too big. It's gotten too big. Now we got to come the other way. Make it more like the high school class or the class president, just the
Yeah,
class,
yeah.
not the whole high school, just your homeroom class.
Yeah.
You know, but when it gets too big, the money gets in there because they see it as power. We need more powerless people running.
Well, that was the idea, and that was the idea partially, at least in 2020, and that's
Yeah,
why we got quite a few people, into Congress.
yeah.
But they were, I'm telling you, they were smart. They ran in appropriate districts, and they got elected. But
Is this AOC's year?
yeah. But see, AOC ran in an area that she was pretty safe in, right?
Yeah, because I think
Was
she's
it Lawler
yeah,
against
Michael Law.
Lawler is a Republican in her neighboring district, and he beat out a Democrat that was only in for 2 years, right? I can't remember the guy's name,
Yeah,
um, but unfortunately, he made one statement that was pretty strong, heavy condemnation of something that a Republican, I think, in the Senate did or said, and uh,
uh,
and they hung that on him as an extreme statement, and really it was just one time that he made something that strong.
all right.
Um,
Look, I made a mistake. AOC has been in office only since the 2019, not 2000.
that's right, that's right.
And she's a Libra, like you.
Yeah, she is.
So anyway,
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to be fine. You know what I mean? It doesn't hurt to be attractive.
yeah, I had my problems with her. I didn't initially like her at first, but
What were
you
the reasons? Why didn't you like her?
uh, just I didn't know if she knew enough. I didn't know if she was smart enough. Um, and I mean, there are other people I still am mad at who are members of Congress. But I'm loosening up. Like Ro Khanna, he's getting more play now, and
Why were you not happy with him initially, or
yeah, because of the way he horned in on Mike Honda, the way he came in after
Mike?
Honda.
Mike is a really good guy, and I'm not going to say he's a friend,
Yeah,
but we know each other, real well. And in fact, when Alex Favros and I won the New American Media, we won a national award for an article that we co-authored, and he was the guy who presented us with the award down in San Jose. So that was one of the major times that we got together and were able to see each other. But I helped him with his initial campaign, right? When God, and it was running like he was he was around 70 years old when he first ran,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I was shocked, frankly. I didn't realize that he was as old, the same age as me, or older actually than me at the time. But he was really good. He was really good, great guy. But when I looked at how what his record was like in terms of actual votes in Congress, he was a little slow. He wasn't that active, and I think he had only pushed maybe one issue, the
Yeah.
one bill that
Well,
eventually got passed into law, and so he was not as productive as I would have liked. And you're right. Ro Khanna came on real strong against him in his first attempt. He
Several
failed.
times he came after him.
Yes,
Several times he
yes,
came after him,
yes,
and then
yes.
finally got him. And I just think that it was a matter of seeing someone old and pushing him out. And it's the same thing. Uh, it's a smaller version of Feinstein, Pelosi. Older people
Sure.
who are
Yeah.
maybe a
I'm
shade.
asking the same question. Pelosi has got to look around and see who are the best people who are strong enough to take on not only Trump but take on local Republicans in the state as well. Uh,
Yeah.
so so yeah, she's got to be doing that. All of them got to be doing that. And I'm sick and tired of Schumer, frankly. You know,
Yeah. Well, I mean, he had a chance to really make a name, and you know, he backed down. But
he
this is
already had a name. He already had a name, and he was the diplomat type. He was trying to be like Biden, and
statesman. I'm a statesman.
diplomatic.
Yeah.
You know,
Dad,
Uh,
I'm not here to burn down the house. I'm a statesman.
right?
I'm here to
That's it.
hold the
That's it.
matches.
That's
I
it.
just
And
hold.
he's
Yeah.
acting as though. And when he was queried like 2 weeks ago
Yeah.
on the Sunday shows, right?
Yeah.
He said that. Well, I don't think we're at a constitutional crisis yet. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
I remember.
actually what he said. You
I've
know,
heard. I know a lot of people are saying we're not there yet. It's almost. I don't know how close to the cliff do you want to be.
yeah,
Do you have to be all the way down the hill, or can you be like just threatened a little bit because any false move and you're off the cliff?
that's
I
right.
mean, I think we're tippy toed right up to the edge.
Nah,
Uh,
we're over the edge. The only thing that has
are
not
we
happened,
rolling down? Are we rolling down?
no, the only thing that hasn't happened yet is that that the Supreme Court hasn't taken on one of the big cases. Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
about to happen. I mean, right now, I think I was looking at the Times earlier, and there was a case coming up
which one?
about senatorial power,
Oh,
and and
well, that's going to go right to the heart.
yeah,
Article
it
1,
is. It
Article 2,
is. And
Article
that's
3.
going to tell you which way the court is leaning right there. I think it would be a good bellwether. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Who
that's what
has
we
the
should be
power?
watching.
Executive power is really the Trump has eaten Congress's lunch as long as the Republicans are too they're too they lack courage. They want power. They'll get there through any means. So there's two
Well, they
two
also want
parts.
to they want to disassemble American culture.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Oh, how about our buddy? Trump's going after the Smithsonian
Yeah,
because
that's right.
too woke. Too woke. I mean, what
That's
is
my
it?
fault.
What are
Yeah.
they doing? They want they have black museum. Okay, they have a black museum. What's next? An Asian museum, right?
Well, they have a collection.
I know, but there was a push for an Asian museum. I don't know if that's going to happen now.
Right.
And I
Well,
mean,
it'll eventually happen because there's a lot of money in the Asian American communities. There's a lot of money, and I
well,
know which big donors would support it.
oh yeah, there are a lot. There are a lot in the tech world, of course.
Yeah,
But this is the thing. When you said American culture, well, what's funny if you look at the political realm, right? Trump goes into the Kennedy Center. Trump now wants to get into the Smithsonian. He wants to dictate American culture so it stays like Rip Van Winkle's favorite culture, which is unwoke and just perfect for Rip Van Winkle.
yeah,
But
yeah. I think he ate the wrong mushroom. That's all.
yeah, but the thing about where we are culture wise, I I I
Well,
was
I mean, here's his executive order. The title of the executive order is "Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History."
oh yeah I saw
Mr.
it.
Trump, I'm quoting here from the New York Times. Mr.
Yeah,
Trump took aim at what he described as a revisionist movement, in quotes, across the country that, quote, seeks to undermine the remarkable achievements of the United States by casting its founding principles and historical milestones in a negative light, unquote. His order claimed that the Smithsonian, in particular, had, quote, come under the influence of a divisive, race-centered ideology, unquote, and that it promotes, quote, narratives that portray American and Western values as inherently harmful and oppressive, unquote. Well, okay.
Yeah.
So there it is.
Yeah,
It's, so,
I was when I heard that. Look, what I was going to bring up, but I just sort of forgot for a second. I was reading the Atlantic Monthly, not for SignalGate, but for that's because that's where it all started for Jeffrey Goldberg and that article. But they had an article on the best poetry collections for the 21st century. And we are in the 21st century, 2000 to 2025, the first quarter of the 20th century. So, what do you suppose? I mean, it's the wokiest, most honest, most reflective collection of poetry for the first quarter century. Different from 18th century, 19th century, 20th century poetry, which would have, mostly white poets. This poetry collection has, just in the top 5, 2 blacks, an Asian, a Latina. This is in the top 5. That says something about, and the Atlantic, they're literary more than political, but but you got to see it as an honest reflection of where our culture is. It's an honest reflection of America, what it's become. It's become a mostly Latino, African American, mostly.
my position from the time that, of course, I'm biased because our concept of ethnic studies was founded on the notion of the third world, and third world, and the political impetus came from the Third World Liberation Front, right, and an organization of which I was a member at SF State, and there was a like organization at Berkeley at the time, and we both started ethnic studies programs that still exist today. So I'm biased, but I can tell you that my major argument that won substantial support from members of the academic senate at SF State. That's all faculty, right? And we were just students at the time. I was a student at the time. But the major argument that I made was representation, representation and actual the reality of American society as a multicultural society. And all I had to do was take a look at food, right? And new, I mean, burritos were new, right? Right, in '69. I mean, in the mid '60s, some of the fast food companies that were selling stuff in those, radar range sales machines, right, where you get, coin op sales machines, and they had refrigerated burritos, and they were basically just beans, right, refried beans wrapped in a tortilla. It was nasty, but that's what people thought burritos were. I said, no, man, that's not cool. Let's go to the mission. And we went into the mission and I think it was El Faro or Farolito, one of those really
right there
early
on 24th.
on 24th. And people said, yeah, man, and it was like a big deal, right? This is the real thing. Okay. And so all I had to do was point to the changes that were already happening in American society and how representative they were of change of culture. And how, if we can have representation in the workplace and we have representation in reality, right? In the cultural space, why isn't that happening at the universities, right? And that was an inescapable argument, right? They could not justify our exclusion, right?
Yeah, and I've been talking about it in journalism from day one, from my very first day there, in all the different organizations. I was just at an AAJA thing last week, and it comes up. Why were most of us of a certain age are there because we didn't see any people like us.
That's right.
In the media, and television, radio, and newspapers, and that was the battle. The battle was always. It was always representation. It was always, as I put it, uh, coverage and employment. Right? We got to be covered. We got to be employed there, and that equals diversity. You know that diversity is just being. You got to hire us, and if you hire us, we're going to write about us. You know, as
Right.
being part of society, and that's all diversity is. It's not a dirty word. You
Right.
know, and just like they had in the university level they had to be, you had to let them in. You got to hire the teachers and the professors, and then hey, you got to teach them what they need to know. It's not basket weaving. It's history. It's like Latin
Yep.
American history, Asian American history.
Yep.
It's not anti-white history. It's not anti. It's just history. I
Well,
mean,
but it looks like anti-white when you see what the resistance was. When you
yeah.
see what the source of suppression and the reason for the oppression and suppression was. And that's what they don't like. They don't like that being exposed. Okay.
Well, it needs to be exposed because they want that unwoke. They want that. They close your
Well,
eyes.
you know,
You didn't see this. You didn't see this. You're unwoke.
yeah.
You didn't see this. That's all
Well,
there's. It's,
I,
it's frustrating.
yeah. Well, anyway, I have to get going.
Yeah.
I,
All right. We're gonna end this. We're gonna end this. But thank you, Dan, for chiming in and reading from that. I got the press release about restoring order, restoring history, and I thought, there's about to be a big thing about Asian Americans and Filipinos at the Smithsonian. But
just the title of the order, Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History.
yeah,
So talking about the experiences of people, the historically accurate representations of the experience of non-whites. I hate that term, but people of color, right? In
yeah.
American society, that's insane. That's what he's saying.
Well, for racists, it drives racists crazy.
Well,
Racists
then
don't like.
they're the ones who have the insanity. It's not
Yeah.
us.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, that's true.
It's, yeah.
This is a crazy thing about you know. Oh, is it classified or unclassified? Is it a war plan? Is it a attack plan? Is it well, we
There's
could
no
debate.
war plan here. There's no war plan.
There's no
I
war
know
plan.
war plan.
Yeah.
I know
Like
war plan.
why are we even bothering a signal? Let's go to AOL. Let's go to AOL chat. Let's go to Yahoo. All right,
All right,
Dan. It's
man.
good to be here,
Okay.
man. Gosh, I'll
Yeah, I'll
talk to
catch up with you on Blue Sky.
you. Okay. I'm not on Blue Sky yet. I'm not on Blue Sky.
I'm on
Oh,
Blue Sky. I'm
hey,
on Blue Sky.
you're my signal partner. You're the only
Yes,
partner I
yes.
have on.
I was. Yeah,
You're
yeah. I
we're
was
on signal.
already. I was using Signal to eavesdrop on Hegseth, and now you've outed me, and so
Okay. I'm waiting to get invited. I'm on signal, so
yeah,
they'll invite me
no,
to the next one.
no.
And oh,
I found out what his favorite porn channels were, and that's how I got in. You know.
oh wow, who Hegseth?
Yeah, Hegseth. Oh, he's heavy. He's
Oh,
heavy
oh,
into
oh
all
wow.
kinds of
Wow,
porn. It's
I
just
didn't know.
really, it's unbelieful. I mean,
Yeah,
he
well,
doesn't even draw the line at bestiality.
yeah,
I mean,
well,
it's
he's not the defense secretary, so
yeah.
he
You
has
could also you could also blame you could also I know how Greenland is going to welcome JD Vance. They're gonna say, please do not take us over, but here's a couch. Here's a couch for for your pleasure.
yeah, and we'll leave a bowl of seal meat soup. Seal meat soup. That's a delicacy. Just
Yeah.
like Filipinos love their lumpia
Uh,
in Greenland, the
oh
Inuits
no, lumpia compared. No, that's way off, dude.
they
What-
love.
I think
All right.
if you said dinaguan or something like
Oh
that,
yeah,
then like,
or
yeah,
like adobo, or
adobo.
like
Okay, you want to go with adobo?
or pig ear dinaguan,
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Here's seal meat stew.
Yeah, no,
Seal meat.
it's pig ear and pig snout. It's got to be. You got to have it both.
That's right.
That's the way
That's a
to
big
go.
snout. Oh, the snout. The
Now
snout.
you made me hungry. Damn it! And
Hey, very good, Dan. You got the snout. You got the snout.
okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay, Dan.
okay.
All right.
Take care,
All
man.
right.
Thanks. I got it.
See you on Signal. See you on Signal. There he goes. Daniel Phil Gonzalez, Professor Emeritus, San Francisco State University, College of Ethnic Studies, Asian American Studies Professor, politics, you name it. And we always like to talk on Fridays to get us less depressed. And then we run it throughout the weekend. So I hope you catch it. Tell your friends. It's Emil Amok's Takeout. This is number 849. We talk a little about SignalGate, talk a little about Greenland, Canada, students, Professor Dan. Find it on YouTube at Emil Amok 1. Find it on Facebook, facebook.com/EmilGuillermo.media. Oh, and on X. A lot of people on X watch us. But watch it on YouTube at Emil Amok 1. And time to swish away. Have yourselves a nice weekend. We like to end with a little loving kindness. Yeah. Because show the love, put it out there, comes back twofold. That's the way it works. I know what's going to happen this weekend. I'm going to see some comedy this weekend. Get some laughs. But also, I'm not kidding. I'm going to Canada. I'm worried about Canada. I'm worried. I'm going up there to do my show, and I hope they still like me. I have some other artist friends who said, I had a big contract canceled in Canada because of tariffs. I said, well, all right. I don't think that's going to happen to me, but stay tuned. Stay tuned. We're going to Canada, from Fresno to Canada, and then we'll do the show around here a couple times too, in the Bay Area. Try to make arrangements to do the show at least once or twice here before we take it to Canada, because it's got to be good. Got to be good for the Canadians. Gonna test it out here in America. Then slap that tariff. No tariff. I'm tariff free. Sending the love. Remember, we're sending the love. So, twofold. Or sending out, it comes back twofold, threefold, fourfold. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Emil Amok to you. Till next time. Mahalo.